Today's conversation is with Quinn Newhall, and I am so excited to talk to him about all things Clean Eatz. I'm your host, Katherine LeBlanc, and let's jump right in. Quinn, welcome to today's recording. Let me hear a little bit about you and what brought you to Clean Eatz to begin with.
Yeah, so I've been in the restaurant business now for 36 years. I hate to admit that, but yeah, 36 years. And have been in, mostly fast casual and QSR. And then when the opportunity came up, Clean Eats was such a unique animal in the fact that it is got 5 revenue streams, right? Typically, it's drive-through and the front counter and, or it's counter and full service into the dining room. But typically, it's just selling the same stuff through different vehicles. It says there's 5 different revenue streams that you have to manage. And so when I was looking at different opportunities, this one was really unique because I felt it was something that could help broaden my portfolio in terms of, my expertise relative to meal plan type concepts, which I had never done. And also the fact that there gives you so many opportunities as a franchisee in which to excel. So that's what brought me here.
Yeah. And so, I know internal speak, we call it the 5 revenue streams, but essentially that's 5 different ways franchisees can drive revenue into their location. And I think that you really outlined it well. In a typical restaurant setting, you're talking about your counter service, you're talking about your menu, and then typically you have your catering, right? Your B2B. And so it's
Right.
two. And so at Clean Eats, there's 5. Let's walk through each of them and tell me a little bit about how each of them drives the revenue into the business and how do owners excel at it. Because the other thing people could think is 5 sounds like a lot, 5 sounds complicated, but the way that Clean Eats has their operations set up, I think, is also one of the more unique things about the restaurant industry. And I think we'll get to it when we get to the revenue streams. So let's jump right in. So let's start with the big behemoth. 40% of revenue is driven by meal plans. What are meal plans? How do people get them? Tell us about Clean Eats and meal plans.
So meal plans really was the foundation in which we were Don and Yvonne, really started. It was them in a kitchen, their own kitchen, creating meals for the bodybuilding and the healthy segment. And all of a sudden, they realized that it wasn't just bodybuilders that wanted these healthy meals and options for you. And so from that, Clean Eats was founded. So it is the true basis of what made Clean Eats Clean Eats. It's interesting because, as you'd mentioned, the 40%, in the last couple months, some of that has shifted towards grab and goes in terms of it being almost at parallel and some weeks being better than the meal plans. Um, and that's what I love about this brand. Because of the revenue streams you have the ability to pivot based on what consumer demand is, right? People are in this active lifestyle. Many people have 2 jobs to make ends meet. Grab and goes are a great alternative for them because they get home, they can take those meals, cook them at home in the microwave, and in 4 minutes have a great satisfying meal and not have to go through all the hassle of preparing the meals. For those folks that are fairly stable in the way their lives are, meal plans are perfect. They're freshly made in our cafes, right? And you go on and or every week they change. And so you have this opportunity and variety that you can then come pick up and have nutritious meals for the entire week. Um, and then the grab and go piece, like I already talked about, that's kind of my go-to because I travel a lot. So it's always nice when you get back late night from a trip to have that option for you. And of course, I think what really drives our growth is the cafe itself, because if we can get people in the door and come in and have a delicious lunch or dinner, and very healthy for you, we then can introduce them to all the other revenue streams that we have, right? We
Mhm.
have a lot of times in the cafes, there's a catering set up so people can see what our catering looks like. And of course, marketplace, right? I call that the Clean Eats Tic Tacs. They're the things that you buy impulsively through suggestive selling, right? To help raise your ticket average. So, that cafe to me, and we're growing leaps and bounds year over year in terms of number of guests through there, being able to then introduce them to our other revenue stream options is really, really plays a role in this whole component, right? And catering this year, we just really dove into catering this year, and we were already 600% higher in catering this year than we were for the entire year last year. So, a lot of positive, great things that are happening.
Yeah, well, just to outline specifically what those 5 ways to earn are, you have meal plan and grab and go, which are your, macro-friendly, pre-prepared meals that you can eat when you're ready to eat. And I think, Quinn, you made a great point of kind of when the use cases for both the meal plan and the grab and go. One thing from an operator's perspective is that, the idea of grab and go and the freezer meals really was born out of a way to eliminate waste, right? In our meal
Right.
plan development and prep. And so you almost have a waste-free kind of system that's happening between meal plan and grab and go, which I think is so unique. And then you have your cafe, which is what a typical, restaurant concept you might think about. So we call it quick service or fast casual. Those are kind of industry words that we use to describe what our cafe offers. And that's essentially you're on the go. You need to stop and get something to eat, but Clean Eats is going to give you something that's a little bit better for you than your typical fast food. And then we talked about catering as a huge growth opportunity for Clean Eats. I think especially as more people are going back to the office, going back to work, and they're wanting to carry through the healthy habits that they have when they're able to eat at home. And so the Clean Eats catering kind of way to earn is really gaining steam with Quinn at the helm. And then that last piece we called marketplace, but these are retail items that are prepackaged that franchisees order, requires zero labor, requires zero effort from the franchisee, and they put those on the shelves. And to Quinn's point, that's the Tic Tacs, that's the grab and go. It's your, hey, I'm going to need this later on down the road, so let me grab an empanada or a burrito in order for me to feel satisfied in a better for you way.
I wanna really touch on the catering, right? Because catering is a one-time event, but what it's not about that one event. It is about the exposure that catering does because you are going to expose a bunch of people that have never heard of Clean Eats, much less tasted our great food. And so that becomes a brand multiplier, right? And because now people taste the food, they go, "Who was this? This is Clean Eats." They see it on our marketing, on our boxes, and all those things, and that helps drive additional revenue in. So each of them plays a role in either increasing ticket average, increasing frequency, or introducing people to Clean Eats. So I just want to make that point because sometimes people will go, "It's just one event." Yeah, but you're going to touch
Mhm.
hundreds of
Yeah.
people in that one event, right?
Absolutely. Well, and you talked about the deliciousness of the food, and I think we kind of breezed right through that because, frankly, if you're in the food business, that's table stakes. But the Clean Eats food is delicious. Yes, it's better for you. Yes, they have a better nutritional profile than most of what you're going to see out there in the space. Talk to me about the deliciousness of Clean Eats and how you bring that taste and quality across all 5 ways to earn.
Well, it starts with great recipes, right? So our culinary department, along with the founder, Yvonne, she's very passionate about the offerings that we provide. And every week they go through and ensure, they taste them, they try them out, they look at all the macros to make sure they meet all the healthy requirements that is Clean Eats. And most recently, we've done some changes on our premium meals to really up the ante, if you will. The first one they had was beef short ribs, and oh my goodness, they were so good. And it's hard while you're eating them to think, okay, wait a minute, this whole meal I'm going to have less than 500 calories, and I'm going to get 42 grams of protein and only 30 grams of carbs, and the list goes on that you're like, wow, eating healthy doesn't mean you have to eat styrofoam, I mean, it's actually really great food that you feel good about eating.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, isn't that how Clean Eats got started? Of making sure that these macro friendly, high protein meals were things you actually wanted to eat and you didn't have to eat chicken and rice every single day.
Right.
So, Quinn, we talked a little bit about the uniqueness of Clean Eats and how these 5 revenue streams really work together to develop a full life cycle for the customer, right? So, if they come in through the cafe, they're getting exposed to our meal plans, our grab and goes, our marketplace items, and we even have instructions on how to expose them to the catering side of things. If they come in through our meal plan, then they know that they have a staple kind of backup for when they're out and about and then they need an alternative to fast food. And so it sounds like they really work together and in tandem to make sure that we are delivering clean eats to the customer no matter where they are.
Right. You know, we are all things to all people. The cafe that is right next door, we have a window where we can look in and see, how busy it is. I love going over there during lunch, helping out, talking with guests. Um, and you look, and there's people, my age, and, I just got my AARP card, so I'm that guy. Young high school kids to moms, it has such a broad appeal. It just always makes me smile when I think about that opportunity that we have for all people, all walks of life, you know?
Awesome. Well, Quinn, thank you so much for talking to me today about Clean Eats and the 5 ways to earn with the brand.
You bet. Thanks for having me.